Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are back, welcome back. If it's your first time, hi, I'm Madison. I do tarot and oracle readings. I also talk about astrology as well. I'm going to start doing a little bit more spiritual videos. Someone requested a spiritual awakening video from me, just like some beginner tips and things like that a few weeks ago. And then I've been thinking a little bit more about stuff in that vein, so you'll probably get more other spiritual type videos from me where I will still add in card readings at the end so we can kind of get some collective energy and some collective guidance on where to go forward with the information. But today's video is about Mars in retrograde. The other day I was, just having a normal morning, and then I had an interaction, and suddenly all of these childhood wounds that I had not worked on and I had always convinced myself was okay, and I was okay, and like all this stuff just suddenly all came to the forefront. And it was very intense. And I literally spent 2 hours just straight up crying. Like, I was about to make breakfast, and then like I looked at the clock and all of a sudden it was 11. And I was like, I guess I'll make lunch, And I realized that it was the day before Mars went into retrograde, so we were already in the shadow period, and I had been feeling confused and off for a while. So that's what made me decide to make this video for other people who are feeling the same way. I made an Instagram story about it, and I got a few responses of people being like, yeah, I feel the same. I feel like I don't have support from people. I feel alone. I feel all this stuff. And I think the reason that we're feeling like people aren't reaching out to us is because everybody else feels the same. We're all on the same level of feeling like nobody cares about us. Nobody's reaching out to us. Are we reaching out too much? So now we're distancing ourselves, all these complicated emotions that are coming with this particular transit. We still have a few more planets in retrograde. Literally 5 planets, I think, are in retrograde right now. And it's been that way since April of 2020, Mars has been in Aries, though, since the end of, I think, May, beginning of June, right around when the protests and riots started happening with the Black Lives Matter. And that's because Aries and Mars are both symbols of war, if that makes sense, and they're both together. It is the home planet, so it is in its home place, but this is causing a lot of impulsive energy. This is causing fighting. This is causing conflict, and a lot of this is conflict that's been going on for a long time. Like, we're kind of like meant to be like where we are now based on what's going on, if that makes sense. So Mars will be in Aries all the way up until December. Chiron is also in Aries, and that planet has to do with the wounded child. So that is a big reason of why these things combined is creating a lot of tension with family, and a lot of like old childhood wounds are coming back up that were never healed, Sometimes it's hard to confront family about the way that you're treated because that they went through something as well. So it becomes like this difficult dynamic of like needing to be validated, but that person also wants to be validated. So there's like this weird like disconnect of like, what happened to me wasn't okay, and what happened, but that's their same perspective too. What happened to me wasn't okay either. And now we're all existing in this space where we have resentment against each other. We have different expectations for each other, and nobody is actually what anybody else feels that they should be. And that's based on generations and generations of being forced to not live as our true selves, if that makes sense. Many of you on a spiritual journey probably have dealt with this with your family, where if you're being spiritual at all, it's kind of frowned upon because we're not really supposed to love ourselves. We're really not. I mean, we are, by the universe we are, but to other people, we're not supposed to love ourselves. Many people do not love themselves, and they go around their life not loving themselves, expressing that through projecting onto other people, destroying relationships, never staying in, a single place, like all these things that cause constant conflict, moving, like disassociation, depression episodes, anxiety. Like, people search for these things because it makes them feel something, because what they don't feel deep inside is actual love. I know it's kind of deep to get into the video like immediately, but that's basically what is happening at a generational level with a lot of people. Millennials at large have depression and anxiety, and I think that obviously it did not start with just their parents. It goes beyond that. It goes from so many generations of people settling for less, people working and not having the ability to look within and really love themselves because they're providing for their family. They're providing for their parents who struggled to provide for them long enough to where You know, in some cases back during the Industrial Revolution, they were old enough to walk. By the time you were walking, you were working, you know? So we kind of have been trying to break away from that with like child labor laws and all these other things we've been doing, but there's still that stigma. There's still that expectation that we are born to be enslaved to our family. And that continues to go on. Our parents are enslaved to our grandparents. Our grandparents were enslaved to our great-grandparents. We owe them our lives because they gave us life. And because we're having a huge spiritual awakening right now, a lot of people are challenging that with their parents and telling them, I do not exist to validate you. I do not exist to, you know, make you feel that giving birth to me like meant something to you. You know what I mean? So I feel like so many people relate with this. There's so many discussions with millennials, and Generation Z is actually one of the first generations to actually like really stand up to their parents. You guys have been doing a great job talking to your parents about racism, systemic oppression, like all of those things. You guys are doing a great job of confronting that and ending the cycle. And I think that that's where we're about to start going, because since a lot of our basic needs are being met in a way, like, yes, there's still homelessness, yes, there's still all these issues, but people are kind of trying to come together. We're in the age of Aquarius, so people are starting to come together, and this is causing conflict with the old, because we are meant to bring in innovative, we're meant to bring in the new, and that is where we're heading now. And this Mars in retrograde is coming up during this build-up to where we are now, you know? So this is why they're saying to expect a lot of conflict. There's going to be fighting, there's going to be arguing, there's going to be tears, there's going to be growth. And every time that a planet goes into retrograde, that gives us a time to be introspective about what's happening. Many people struggle to be introspective because their shadow self is so strong. The idea of actually working on themselves is very painful, so they avoid it as much as possible. They turn to drinking, drugs, destructive relationships, intense sexuality, whatever it is that they need to feel numb. So you might be dealing with people like that if you are trying to go on a spiritual path and to improve your life. You're going to run into people who don't want to do that. Okay? So, sorry it's so dark in here. It's kind of raining today, and I used part of the sun to create like a lighting situation, but obviously that's not happening. It does go with my Scorpio rising look of looking kind of emo, so I'm just going to kind of keep it. What I normally do with these types of videos is I will go over notes and then we'll do some type of reading. Sometimes they are pick a card readings, but this one's just going to be a collective reading. So this video might be shorter than usual, but I think that's fine because I'm also going to probably after this record a video about sexual energy, and that'll have a collective reading as well. So it's kind of going to be like some videos are coming out soon that will continue to give readings. They may not be pick a card, but it's going to be a kind of a collective thing. And I think that that works because a lot of people who do follow me are into shadow work. They want to grow. They want to heal the inner child. So if we're on that same path, then these readings are going to consistently go along with that type of energy. So that's where we'll kind of go with this. I just wanted to go ahead and give a little shout out. I have a little amethyst necklace here. You can't really see it because of the lighting, but that's fine. But it comes from Squirrel Nest Witchery. And basically most of their profits actually go to helping wildlife. So I just kind of wanted to give a little quick shout out for that. It's a little vial necklace with the crystal on it, so I can put, you know, whatever essential oils I want into there. And it also makes me, you know, feel extra spiritual. But amethyst is my favorite crystal, so it makes me feel a little extra spiritual and a little extra confident in myself whenever I make these videos or do readings. I just got the necklace recently, but I just kind of wanted to give a little shout out for that. Okay, so here are the notes for Mars in retrograde in Aries. Okay, so for the details, I wrote a few details down. I used Astro Matrix. I don't know if you guys use it, but it's really awesome. I like subscribe to them, and they give you like super detailed information about every single transit. Sometimes it's like overwhelming, but it's really so helpful, especially when I'm compiling notes for you guys. So if you want to check it out, go ahead. It'll help you with your stuff, you know? Okay, but whenever Mars is in Aries, the way we express ourselves is through drive, so taking action. It's also assertive action. And this can cause conflict and impulsivity because it's like Mars and Aries combined, as I said earlier. The element here is fire, so this is passion and creativity are like really high. It's also cardinal energy, so that's like getting started and going for things, if that makes sense. It's going to start September 9th, which is the day that I am recording this, and it'll go on until November 13th. So it's going to be 2 months of this type of energy. It can be used as a time for healing, especially with Chiron, because it is also in Aries. I found this out a few minutes ago, and I didn't know this because I'm still learning everything. I'm not like, super expert, but I also don't pretend to be. So Mars only goes into retrograde once every 2 years, okay? So the eclipse that happened back on July 4th, that was another 2-year cycle that ended. I don't know about you guys, but on July 4th, I remember looking up at the fireworks, and I felt a release, because I had just gotten out of an extremely emotionally abusive situation, and I was about 1 month out at that point. So when I looked up at the fireworks and I felt it, and I felt like this situation is gone, this person, these people are out of my life, then it finally felt like this release, because I tried to think of how 4th of July was the year before, and it was like crying, toxicity, anger, aggression, resentment. And then I tried to think of it before that, and it was like sadness, being at home. I don't even think we went outside 4th of July in 2018, and that was kind of the beginning of the living situation that I lived in. It was almost 2 full years of living in this like really intensely dark, codependent situation that I did not know that I was entering into whenever going into it, if that makes sense. So now this is the ending of another 2-year cycle now. I tried to think of where I was in 2018 around this time, and I was finishing my degree, and I do remember there being like weirdness in my life at that point, because I didn't understand a lot of the stuff that was going on at home, and I didn't understand my health as well either. So it was a lot of like sadness, low vibration, not understanding what was happening to me, and things like that. So very much like didn't even leave my bed for days at a time, stuff like that. And then the next year was like moving on from it. I got like a new job. Things were changing for me. I moved to a new city, And then this year it's like another new change. I mean, I know that 2020 like really sucks. And I am I'm still in a transitional period. But it's still like things are moving up. Things are changing for the good. And like what is negative and no longer needed in my life is making its way out. Because I cannot continue to live in these types of cycles where negative energy is constantly being directed towards me, And I know a lot of you, the reason I'm saying this is because I know a lot of you guys are going through similar stuff. You might have people in your life or situations that you're in, or like jobs that you're working at or something, where there's just so much negativity being directed directly towards you. And so now is the time for us to move on and move out of those situations, and release that type of pressure and that negative energy, because it does not serve us, Mars will also be connecting with the other planets that are in Capricorn, because there's a stellium in Capricorn right now. This will intensify transformation for our daily lives. Mars will square with Saturn on September 28th, Pluto on September 9th, and Jupiter on October 19th. We are meant to review our motives before reacting impulsively, if that makes sense. Hold on, because I wanted to grab my basic astro cards before doing this so I can lay them out and show them to you guys, but I kind of forgot, so I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, I have these cards in front of me. These are my design. I have smaller ones coming in the mail that I'm about to start kind of marketing. But whatever, the whole point I'm using them is to kind of have like a visual idea of what's happening. So all 3 of these planets are in Capricorn, which is feminine cardinal energy, and it is also Earth. So everything is inside of that type of energy. So Earth energy is, of course, finances, stability, things like that. It being feminine is about communication and communicating between each other. And then it being cardinal means that it's a starter, a driver. So Mars is also in a cardinal sign right now, right? So this like drive of action, something, something to get started. So it'll square with Saturn. Whenever something squares another, whenever transits square each other, I don't know how to explain it like super good, but whenever planets square each other, what happens is it creates a lot of work, if that makes sense. So things are going to be happening. And blame it on the stars, they call it square up. So like fighting or anything like that. But it could also just mean like there's conversations to be had, there's movements to make, there's something like that. So these planets will square. And Mars will square with Saturn, and Saturn is about authority and maturity. So they're kind of one of those planets where if you learn your lessons, you'll be rewarded. Everybody has their Saturn return around the time that they turn 30. It starts around like 27. And you're supposed to kind of like learn your lessons at that point. So it's squaring that right now of like learning our life lessons. It'll square Pluto on the 9th, which is about power and transformation. So this means that it's going to be a time for you to like really actually transform like who you are and take your power back in a way and like challenge other people and challenge their power over you. So people arguing with their parents and their family and stuff like that during this time is kind of like meant to happen. And then we have Jupiter here too, which is growth and personality. Okay, so we're changing into the person that we feel like we're meant to be. Sorry, I got a totally new light, so I got to figure out like, okay, cool. Yeah, growth and personality. So this is how we will be expanding. This is how we will be kind of identifying ourselves from this point out kind of thing. For people in relationships, Mars is also associated with physical passion, especially your sex drive. So for some people who might normally be like have a really high sex drive, yours might be a little lower like coming up. For other people too, it could be the opposite. If you're not really a very like your libido is not very strong, it'll be heightened during this time. And this will also square Venus pretty soon, and so this will stimulate kind of review of relationships and kind of like taking stock and figuring out like what exactly it is that makes sense to you in this relationship that isn't just based off of sex, if that makes sense. So that'll be something to kind of like think about too and kind of like, you know, embrace in your life. Okay, so that's all the notes that I have here. Let's go ahead and let's start pulling cards into our collective reading and see what we can do to get through this like difficult time. Okay, I pulled a few cards from the basic astro deck. So we have first house over here, so the self and personality. So earlier we were talking about Jupiter, and that has to do with personality and growth as well. Your first house is kind of like how you are represented to other people, how people see you, like what you come off as. So I think during this time, a lot of us are going to be having kind of like a personality like change. And for those of you who like do know what your natal chart is, you do know what lessons you're meant to be learning, this will be kind of a time to start like implementing more of like what it is that you're supposed to be doing and what it is that you're supposed to be embracing, especially when it comes to communication with other people. Yep, it's over here with Pluto, so power and transformation. So take your power back and allow it to transform you right now. Like literally the energy is like forcing you to do this, and the universe will force your hand. If you try to avoid conflict, it's going to happen. And especially with Mars being in retrograde in Aries right now, if you are trying to avoid conflict, this person will continue to kind of like come at you over and over and over again, and then at some point you're going to blow up. So it's important to kind of like have those conversations in the most constructive way that you can, and don't allow your ego or your shadow to just like come out and tear this person down. So over here we have Mercury, which is about communication and learning. So it's important for you to figure out how to communicate right now and how you guys can like, how you can move on, how you can like move forward. And we have Sagittarius here too, which is about movement and fire energy. So it's about creativity, passion. Sagittariuses move around a lot. They don't like to be bored, you know, they're mutable signs, so they're always looking for something else to do. They're managing so many things at once, things like that. And Sagittarius does have to do with communication as well, because they're a little bit more direct. Gemini is their sister sign, so Gemini, and it's ruled by Mercury. So Gemini is a little bit more about like, how can I communicate the best with people? Like, how can I, sometimes if you're not like, if you're not evolved, you know, and you're a Gemini, you might use it as a way to try and manipulate people. Like, you're like, how can I get this person to like me? Or how can I continue to benefit from this person? And Sagittarius is a little bit more direct, because they don't really care if you like them or not. A Sagittarius is also the type where like if you try to come at them, they're going to just kind of laugh at you because it's not that serious to them, you know? So try to have like, that's going to be the type of communication we're going to be having right now, is like people kind of trying to like one up each other, and everybody's going to have a really easy time stepping back and seeing what the other person's issue is. So it's going to be a lot of like calling out. So a lot of people's shadows are going to be activated. A lot of people's egos are going to be coming out, and it's going to be so important to not attempt to trigger someone's ego. Like, when our ego becomes triggered, we try to trigger it in the other one, you know? So it's important that like if you feel your ego being triggered, it's important, anytime you're triggered, it's your ego. it's important for you to kind of like work on like why that's happening, where that comes from, instead of just immediately reacting, okay? Because it's not really an excuse. Like, sorry, I know PTSD is real. I know all of those things. But you also know, if you're seeking therapy for these things, how important it is to take accountability for your actions so that you don't take what happened to you, your PTSD symptoms, and put them on other people. We know abuse moves. Abuse is learned. Abuse passes between people. So you know that you're not supposed to be passing that on to other people. So whenever you feel triggered and you feel yourself reacting, it's important for you to take accountability. If you did react, that's okay. It happens, you know? But you have to take accountability. You can't just brush it off. I have PTSD. No, I'm sorry. You can't just do that. It's harmful to other people, and all you're doing is passing pain. So it's important to take accountability and be like, hey, I got triggered. I talked to you wrong. That wasn't cool. I'm going to try really hard to not do it again. Or it won't happen again, and actually stick to it. And then try to have an open communication about what happened, and create a boundary with that person where they know that they cannot speak to you that way, or you will get triggered. And then if they do speak to you that way again, don't allow yourself to get triggered again. You already created the boundary. You already told them. At that point, you hold the boundary, and they suffer consequences for what they did, which means they're not going to get to be around you. They're not going to get to share energy with you. Whatever it was that you told them was clear was going to happen if they purposefully triggered you again. So it's going to be important for us to figure out what these boundaries are and communicate them clearly to each other, so that we're not just all yelling at each other, you know, and we're all actually like trying to heal. So that's just some of that. Okay, from our shine from the inside, I kind of have like two little piles going on here, so we're just going to kind of keep going with that for what's happening. But from the shine from the inside oracle deck, we have get back to nature and reconnect with your hippie roots. This is a really great way to ground yourself, is to actually physically go outside. It's raining for me here, but I still went outside earlier. You know, I still have to walk my dog, and it's important to like really make sure that you're looking around, you know. Last night I went out with my fiance to walk our dog, and he was basically walking him, and it was, you know, wet outside, so I kind of just stood. And I just looked up at the stars. I looked at the grass. I just like listened, you know. So it's important to kind of do that stuff to ground yourself. And if you feel like you're panicking because you got triggered, try to go outside. Try to just like be with nature, you know. Yeah, literally touch the grass, literally touch the ground, you know. Listen. What do you hear? Do you hear birds? Do you hear cars? You know, do you hear water? What is it that you hear, you know? And kind of like ground yourself and remember that there's a whole world going on outside of what is happening to you right now, you know? We have step out of your comfort zone and try something new. So this could be another thing too. If you've continuously been trying to make something happen for yourself and it's just not happening, now's the time to change and do something different. I am on the same boat with you about that. Like, there are just certain things in my life that I thought have to go a certain way, or I figured that I had to do stuff a certain way, or to be strong I have to do this, you know, stuff like that. And it just kind of gets to a point where it's like, okay, I've done so much growth and so much work, but I'm still hitting a block. What am I meant to release now? And yes, it's very tiring and frustrating. It's emotionally painful, but it is something that you have to do. You have to like keep adjusting and changing and, you know, going with where the universe is taking you, because you're meant to just go there, you know. My fiance actually got a little frustrated with me the other day because I was telling him like all these plans I kind of have, and then he asked me like, okay, so which one are you going to do? And I went, I don't know. And he got a little frustrated because he's like major Capricorn energy, so he's always got a plan. He's pretty consistent, you know, like with who he is as a person. He thrives on a schedule, stuff like that. But I have a lot of mutable placements, so I'm very like, you know, I'm like, I have like 18 book ideas. I have like course ideas. I have all these journal ideas. I want to create a planner for people for next year. I have different deck ideas I want to do. And I still haven't even finished this first deck. So you get what I mean. My mind is very scrambled. And so it is important to like try to like change what it is that you do need to do if it's not working for you. And some people have to learn that lesson that hard way, you know. I kept telling him that the reason he didn't lose his job during the pandemic was because there weren't lessons he needed to learn in that area. Like, there's always lessons needing to be learned, but for some reason he didn't need to learn the lesson that losing his job would have taught him, if that makes sense. So for all of us that are struggling, there's some type of lesson we're meant to learn, if that makes sense. Okay, I just pulled a couple of cards from the ritual deck. So we have, I don't know how to say this, but it's a rune. Algiz. It's guardianship, security, and higher self. Okay, so finding security within yourself and your higher self here. It's with that step out of the comfort zone, communicating and learning, and then also that Sagittarius movement energy. You know, so we are meant to adjust right now is like hardcore the message I'm getting here. We are meant to adjust. And because this actually all over here is also mutable energy. So this is about movement, taking on multiple tasks, not allowing yourself to get like run down or controlled by one specific thing. This is like movement to the biggest extent. So this is like a path for many of us that we can take, because I'm going to think of this as two different paths, or they can work together, but it just kind of depends on like what you need in the moment. You know, if you're meant to transform your personality, you're going to be on this side. If you're meant to if you're meant to change your schedule, change your life up, add like different elements, then you're going to be over here. For some of us, it's going to be both. So we'll keep on with that in mind. We have for magical tools, salt, barrier, shelter, and sacred space. Okay, so embracing nature, right? Transformation, the self. And now we have protection, right? Our sacred space. And yes, a barrier. Okay, barrier, boundaries. So if we're being triggered, it's important for us to go outside and ground ourselves. And it's important for us to not only have boundaries with other people, but also our own thoughts. You know, you can tell yourself that's too far, because sometimes our thoughts will just keep going and it'll just spiral out and it'll make us feel so bad about ourselves. So if you feel yourself being mean, draw a line. Be like, that's not true. I'm just saying that to hurt myself. That's not true. I have emotional addiction. So I want to feel bad about myself because that's all I've ever felt, and my family makes me feel bad about myself. So I'm telling myself that negative thing, so I'll feel bad about myself. It takes mental, emotional, and psychological strength to admit that you're doing it to yourself. So if you catch yourself doing it and you stop it, then, or you process it, really. It doesn't even need to be like a shame thing, like how dare you think that about yourself. It doesn't need to be that. It needs to be, this is not mine. Why am I processing this? Why am I telling myself this old tale? You know, why am I reminding myself of these terrible things that happened in the past? You know, and then like really process it, journal it, go out in nature, whatever it is that you need to do to release it. Allow yourself to cry if it comes up, you know. And allow yourself to feel what you feel. Like if you feel emotions like, I've always been so lonely, allow yourself to cry for that, you know? It's okay to cry about that. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose to grow up in a house where you were emotionally neglected. You didn't choose all of your conditioning. So now's the time to work on releasing it, because you do deserve to feel whole and loved and all of those things, you know? So we got to work on releasing that stuff and allowing ourselves to forgive ourselves for not knowing better as children or in toxic relationships or whatever. We just didn't know better, and that's okay. So we can move forward and we can transform into the person that we're meant to be. And even if that's a long journey, we're here for it, you know? We're doing it. We're doing the work. All right, I mostly use this deck for my work nowadays, but I was thinking it hasn't been in my videos in a while, and the imagery on them are so beautiful and powerful, so I'm going to use them now. I pulled a bunch of cards, if you can see, so this will just kind of be like the last cards that I pull at this point, and we'll just keep on, we'll just draw connections here, and then I'll let you guys go. You'll be released. Okay, so what we have here is Six of Cups. So this is nostalgia. This is stuff from the past coming up. This could also mean that people from your past are connecting with you right now because they want to get to know who you are now. And you don't have to connect with them if you don't want to, but if there are certain people that you have been missing and you do want to connect with them again, maybe reach out and make the connection, you know? I have soulmates here. For some of you guys, you're going to be meeting your soulmate, or for some of you, you already know this person, you guys are already close. So this could also have to do with like stuff coming up from your past. Could be playing a role in your soulmate connection. So you could either meet somebody, or not really meet them, but reconnect with somebody who you felt was your soulmate in the earlier in your life, or you could meet your soulmate through this connection, or you and your soulmate could do some internal work to work on what happened in the past. We'll keep pulling cards to see where it's meant to go, but there are many connections we can make here right now with this. We have Seven of Cups. So for some of you guys, you feel very limited, like you don't have very many options, and I totally get you with that. The conversation I talked about earlier with my fiance where he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. Because there's just so many things that I can do. Whatever side job I get is not my main focus, because my main focus is this type of work. So really that's just going to be an avenue for me to have the financial stability I need to continue to do this work and like really drive into it and stuff like that. So what I do doesn't really matter to me. But there is like that feeling sometimes of like, what is there to do? You know, I talked about last time with my chronic illnesses, I feel like it's hard for me to find work that fits for me because I do have like these accommodations that need to be made. I believe that they're reasonable, but people will make you feel like your basic accommodations are unreasonable. Like, have you ever noticed when you look at jobs, they're all like must, like for an administrative assistant, it says must be able to lift 50 or more pounds frequently and daily. It's like, okay, you're obviously outing disabled people. What administrative assistant is going to need to lift 50 pounds daily? But it's their way of drawing a line where disabled people cannot apply. You know, so it does become difficult. If any of you guys suffer with things like that, it does become difficult, and it's really not cool. It's like a form, you know, it's a form of like oppression and like keeping people down for things that they can't control. You know, you can't control if you're disabled. You didn't choose it, you know. So just something to think about there. Is like that limited options, which is why I think it is important for you to, you know, step out of your comfort zone and try something different, because like maybe the way you've been trying to look for jobs hasn't been working for you. So now it would be like a different way for you to, you know, do that. Wow, my video is so dark. And also I didn't realize you guys couldn't see these cards up here, but it's fine. I'm doing the best I can. Okay, we have Nine of Swords here. So this tells me that for a lot of you guys, you have been having anxiety. It's been hard to sleep, like you're just worrying so much. And this is a sign that that is coming to an end very soon. It also is with that soulmate connection and the nostalgia type thing. So like, I guess the work that you've been doing from your childhood is going to lead you to a more powerful connection with somebody that you're close to, or like your soulmate connection. And you're going to start worrying a little less about like what's going to happen. You're also going to try to release conflicts right now. So yes, we are on the right path, group. We need to release these conflicts that we're having. And like, I can see too, the limited options, like feeling very limited, could also have to do with reactions to things. Like maybe you feel limited in your responses to your family, like you can't be yourself because you're trying to avoid conflict. So now is kind of the point where like, not necessarily avoiding the conflict, but like just not allowing the conflict to even happen. Like it's like, I'm going to do this for myself because that's what I think is best for me. I don't really care if you're not okay with it, you know, like that type of energy. We have 10 of Cups reversed here too, so this does mean a lot of us are going to feel disconnected from our family. We're going to feel not accepted, and we might be feeling some forms of isolation, but that's okay, because if that is part of what your path is right now, then that's just where you have to be. We deserve to have strong connections with the people around us. We deserve to feel loved and fulfilled and all of those things, and maybe it's just not happening right now, but that's okay, because we're going to work towards it. Okay, we got Knight of Pentacles here, so like planting the seeds for the future growth. It's going to be over here with the soulmate and the nostalgia. So the work we're doing to forgive our past self, and the work we're doing with our soulmates to kind of like have a stronger connection where we, you know, don't use triggered trauma as a way of communication. We're communicating more clearly. Then that's going to continue to produce growth for us. I have the Hermit reversed here. So this is Virgo energy, but this is also about being way too introspective. So like so much so that you're worrying about yourself. So a lot of us are in isolation right now. We've been in isolation for a long time. That's going to be over here with that limited options. So because we feel limited, it does cause us to like overthink and overanalyze it, like to depletion basically, you know. So you guys have to be safe and protect your mental health and protect your health at this point, because it's so important for you to allow yourself to rest, have some rest, take a break. Don't stop overanalyzing for just a little bit, you know. We have the Empress here. It's time to take care of yourself and put yourself first. I was actually going to say with the last card, self-care. So this is actually just kind of a sign that yes, we should put in self-care. And we can love other people too by respecting ourselves and respecting our boundaries. Like, I love you enough to let you not abuse me, if that makes sense. Like, I love you enough to draw this boundary because the way that you are actively trying to destroy our relationship is something that I can't just allow to happen. So I'm drawing these boundaries here, you know, like type of energy, type of stuff. And a lot of us are having to do that with our family right now. Because, you know, families fall back into their old habits. You know, if they made a habit whenever you were a child of like every time they felt panicked and scared or whatever, that they yelled at you or directed that attention towards you, them feeling stressed now, they're going to want to do the same thing. They still see you as an outlet, an emotional outlet for them. So just don't allow them to use you like that anymore, because you are not under their roof. You are not dependent on them. And I mean, even if you are, you can still draw limited boundaries, you know? Ooh, yeah, boundaries right here. You can still draw these boundaries with them because it's important. Like, look at that sacred space, you know, and like all those wands, like keeping it together. Or you can also interpret it as the wands are trying to get in and they can't get past. So yeah, try to be like her. Try to be like, you know, my sacred space is sacred, and it's not okay for you to come in and try to make it about yourself or bring me down or whatever it is that you might be dealing with personally. We have Four of Cups reversed. So this tells me too that for a lot of us, we've been kind of like taking on so much emotional burden from everybody else. We've felt like we've had to, you know, in order to feel love or be appreciated or whatever it is that you might be dealing with. So taking on other people's emotional labor wears us out. And the reason it's reversed right now is because a lot of us are tired of doing it. We want to put a stop to it. So that is important for a lot of us right now. It's over here with sacred space, shelter, and barrier. So like, yes, creating a safe space that you can go and ground yourself where you don't have to deal with other people's crap, you know? And then we have Five of Cups. A lot of us have dealt with mourning this year. You know, it's like not only on top of the pandemic, but like people still die, you know? Lots of us have lost our jobs. Lots of us have lost relationships, lost friends. There's all kind of things going on. There's all kind of losses. And it's okay to mourn that stuff right now. It's also okay to mourn too if like you have a family relationship that you thought was a certain way, and then now through trial and error, like things that have happened, you've realized that your relationship with your family was not what you thought it was. And it's okay to mourn that right now too. It's like crucial and important for you to mourn what you never got, what you didn't deserve, you know? Like if you feel like you don't deserve the parents that you have, you're right, you don't. You deserved to feel loved and seen and heard and all of those things in your childhood. And the fact that you weren't is, you know, it's on them, if that makes sense. But we can't blame them. We can't get mad at them. We can't do any of that stuff anymore whenever we're an adult. At that point, it's just drawing boundaries, having clear communication with them that like, hey, you can't continue to abuse me anymore. And then doing the steps to fight that conditioning, work on that conditioning and bring it down. A lot of us are dealing with generational stuff. So also give yourself a break as well, because like you didn't ask for that terrible thing to happen to your grandma where then she abused your mother and then your mother abused you. You didn't ask for all that stuff to happen. You were just a child, you know? But now you have to do the work to forgive and understand and all that spiritual stuff, you know, that like it sucks when you feel those ways. It makes you mad sometimes. Like if you're like angry at the world when someone tells you to forgive, you're like, F you, you don't know what I went through. And you're right, they don't really know. But it's up to you to forgive and do the work that it takes to move on from what happened and to heal from what happened. So that's what we're going to be doing during Mars in retrograde. So let's stick together and let's do our best to not necessarily avoid conflict, but let's deal with conflict in a healthy, communicative way. Let's learn from the past, and let's make sure that we're moving forward and releasing what we need to, what ties we need to right now. All right. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Good luck.